Hi guys, Stephen Chris here. Okay. So today we're going to be looking at loops, yeah? And basically what are loops? Loops are really simple and easy to understand. I say that in every video tutorial that I make and tell you that see programming is not hard. So loops basically are the way we write repetitive code. What that means is that say for instance we've got a collection of data, and what we want to do here is right, we want to have a scenario where every 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 item in that data does the same thing. So for instance, picture the comment section of Instagram. Every user on Instagram is able to write comments, is able to like, is able to reply or repost and all that stuff here. So let's say they want to interact with the post, for example, and they want to click on like. So you want to have a scenario where anybody who clicks a like on a post and the button turns to red, right? What you don't want to do is write single codes for every single user. Now, what that does is that you're going to have a problem if you want to write code for somebody like Cristiano Ronaldo, who's got millions of followers, and that's quite hectic. You don't want to do that. What you want to do is write one code, one function, right? You want to write one function that repeats itself for every item in that array. So you want to write one function for every time a user, and just ask that function to repeat itself every time, that's for every item in that array. And then all you have to do is focus on adding items to the array and removing them. Makes a lot more sense when you see it in practice. Okay, so basically the idea behind loops is that we write codes and functions that repeat themselves given the number of items or given the array it is presented with. Okay, so hopefully you understand that more when we get into the practice. Okay, so let's jump right into it. Okay, so as we had pointed out before, loops are really easy, so don't get confused about loops. Okay, the thing is that even the best of developers struggle with everything. Okay, so don't be afraid or ashamed to go back and Google stuff and try to find out stuff for yourself. So basically, yeah, like we've said before, the goal of using loops is to enable us to do things repeatedly. That's one. Two, loops allow us to repeat code, so we can say, okay, print something a certain amount of times, right? Some all numbers in an array, you know, and all of that stuff, right? So yeah, so there are multiple types of loops. We have for loop, we have while loop, we have for off loops, we have for in loops, and all of that. So we're gonna start with for loops. So like basically for loops, I don't know how to explain it, but it's just for loops. Okay, so the idea is so what we do is that we give it, we start out with an initial expression, which means we're saying that, okay, we want to loop through something, and this is what it currently looks like. All right, so we can say the number of the people are 0, and then we'll give a condition and say, okay, as long as, now say if the number of people is less than 10, right, then do something. So initial expression, condition, and then increment expression. All right, so just going to show you what that looks like. So we say, okay, for let I equals to 1, then if I is less than or equals to 10, then add 1 each time, right? Then we now come back and say console.log I. So what we're doing is that now show us what you have done at the end. Okay, so again, this is the start, this is the condition, and this is the increment, right? And I'm just going to show you an example of that for loop. So we can say for let I equals to 10. Just gonna do that. Then we separate it with this I less than or equals to, I is less than or equals to 10 equals to 20, so for example, then say I plus plus. Okay, now what this is, yeah, is that I plus plus is how we increment. We could easily just say I should be equals to I I plus 1. It works. You will see that it works. Okay, and then here we will now say, oh, console.log the I. Yeah, console.log I. Now again, I'm just gonna run my terminal. Okay, terminal, new terminal. So we now say node loops.js. okay, and then we'll see that. So you see it logs from 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, all through the way to 20. So you see what I mean, yeah? So this could be I is equals to I then plus 1. So what it's saying is that, so we want to loop through something. Let's make that variable. Let's call it I. And let that I have a value of 10. And that's okay. I want you to loop through this letter I, through this item called I. Now, as long as the value of I is less than 20, I want you to add 1 each time to the value of I. So what it does is that it goes the first time and says, oh, okay, you're 10. And then it says, okay, condition, and says, oh, so I is currently less than 20. No problem. So you say, okay, I should add 1 to the current number. So it says, okay, and it does 10. Returns that. Then it goes again a second time and goes to check, and it says, oh, I is currently 10, and you say, okay, as long as it's long 20, you want me to add 1 to the current number that I is, right? And then it says, okay, so before it was 10, now I'm adding 1, so it's going to be 11, right? And then it goes again and checks, so now I becomes 11, and it checks again and say it's still less than 20, and then it goes again and adds 1 to 11, and it becomes 12, and does that all till it gets to 20. And when it checks at the 20, when the number is 20 and it says, oh, it's 20, okay, I can't add any more number because it asked me to stop at 20. So now I can't, then it stops because this condition is no longer met, right? So really that's easy. So for let I equal to 10, I less than or equals to 20, right? So we're saying I is less than or is equals to 20. So that's what this is. I is less than or it is equal to 20, right? And all of that stuff. So now the next one we'll look at is while loop. All right, so the name is straightforward, like it says, while loop. So we're basically saying while the number is this, or while the item is this, we want you to do this. So what it would do basically is that it will run the code once, and then while that number, you check again while that number is that. So just the first thing that we do is that we declare let my num is equals to 5, right? And then we'll now say while my num, my num is less than or is equals to 5, right? What we want to do is console.log my num, and then num plus plus, and let's just do another console and see if anything changes. Let's just check. Log my num. Okay, take that out, and I'm just going to comment this out so that we're not confused. Then I'm going to clear the terminal, and then when I'm going to say node loops.js, right? You see it's 5 num plus plus. Num is not defined. Where did we call num? Oh, sorry. My num. Right, so clear. Then I'm gonna say node loops.js. See, gives us 5, 6. All right, it says so while it is less, so it runs it once, 5, then it goes through. So what it says is that it's okay while num is less than or equals to 5, right? Num plus plus. right? So what it says, so what it did here is that it runs it once and says is currently equal to 5, right? So I'm going to add one more to it, right? Is less than or equal to 5. That means two conditions. We're saying if it is less than, I want you to console.log the current number, then add 1 to it, and then console it for me. So it gets 5. Let's try that with multiple numbers. Let's say 15. All right. And then let's say node loops.js. Then see, gives a start. So it goes, oh, it's currently 5. Now I'm going to add. So you see, it's doing that twice for us. So he's saying, oh, okay. So he's saying that it checks it does that. It says currently less than 5. It consoles the log 5, and then it adds 1 to it, and it runs another check and say, oh, it's currently less than 5 again. So I'm going to console the current number is 6, and it logs and adds 1 to it, and then gives you 6 again, and then repeats all that until it gets it. You get that? So that's basically what it's doing for us there. Okay, so while a condition is there, do this. And if I just let me clear this. Okay, and then if I remove this, right, and then I say node loops.js, see that? So it checks the first instance, it's currently less than. See, we get up to 15. So it checks the first instance, it's currently 5, it logs it, the current number is 5, it adds 1 and logs it again, it's 5. It logs it again, it's 6. Then it goes again, so it logs it again, now it is 6. Then it goes again and checks it's less than 15. It logs the current number as 6, which is the second 6 that we have here, and it adds another one, it becomes 7, and it logs in 7. Then it goes again and checks it's less than 15, and it logs the current number at 7, which is the second 7, and it adds 1 to it, and it becomes 8, and it logs that 8 together. So it's basically doing that. We're repeating that circle all over again, right, and all that stuff. So yeah, right, so that's that. So basically, like I've just said, while a number is something, do this. Okay, while a number is this, do that. While a number is that, do that. Okay, and then we're going to check for of loops. Sorry, I'm just going to go thing, and I've always said this before, that this document was not prepared by me, was prepared by Code Steele in his tutorial, Modern JavaScript for Beginners. Found it on Udemy. Bought the course on Udemy, so you get these materials with it and all that. So not to plagiarize anybody. Right. So for of loop. For of a nice and easy way of iterating over arrays. So technically, for of loop is usually very akin to using arrays. All right. So so you might not be able to use this. So let's just again, let me just write and then show you guys. So for of, we need an array, right? So say, okay, let's my students, or let's nums is equal to, and you remember how to declare arrays, and then we say 1 2 2 2 3 4 and 5 numbers, right? And then we'll now say for let num of nums, right? Then we'll now say console.log nums plus plus. So we'll see that there is a difference. All right, and I'm just going to clear this terminal and then say node loops.js, right? Okay, well, I don't know what happened there. I know that I had to comment everything out from the top to the bottom, so yeah, so well, I think it works now. So we're just gonna run through. So my nums, so we're now going to say for let num of my nums equal to this, and we're now going to say console.log, so that we know that there's a difference. I'm going to do this. I'm going to say num is equal to num plus 1. Okay, and that's so now we should do node loops .js. You could see 2 3 4 5 6, so 1 2 3 4 5. It looped through it and then added one to each one and all of that stuff. So basically what this code is saying, so you need to understand this, what this code is saying is that we have a variable named my nums, which should be my numbers, and then we say for I need you to loop through the array called my nums and let each item, you know, for each item, for each time you go through, let each item be represented in a variable called let each item represent in a variable called num. Okay, and then when you have done that, add num plus, so add that current number, add 1 to it, and then log it to the console. So it goes the first time and it sees that the number is 1, and it comes back and say, oh, okay, I'm storing 1 in a variable called num, and then I'm going to add 1 to that number, which makes it 2, and then I'm going to log it to the console, so it's 2. And it goes the second time. I said, oh, the current number now is 2, right? And I'm going to add 1 to it and gives you 3. And it goes again, the current number is 3. I'm going to add, you know, another one, 4, and all the way through that. So that's what that is. Now another thing that we can look at is nested loops. All right, so it is possible to have loops inside of other loops. We're gonna do this. So nested loops, so it's very possible to have loops inside of other loops, right? And what that means is that we can loop through items that are nested inside other items. For example, here, if you see, we've got one array that is outside containing 3 other arrays. All right, so what we want to do is that we want to loop through this first array, and then when we have done that, we want to loop through each array and sum up the numbers that are here. So it will loop through this one, then when it gets there, to loop through this one and impute the result and sum up the result, and then loop through this one and sum up the result, and then loop through that. So let's just see how that works. So what we're going to do is for what are we going to call it? Items. Let's just do items of nested array here. Then we're going to say let added is equal to let's call it 0 for now, and then we're going to say for let nested items this time around of items. See what we did there now? So we have looped through the first one, right? And we're now saying now let the nested items of items, let it return added should be plus equal to plus equals to nested items, right? And then we're now going to say console.log, and I'm going to use string interpolation here, right? So I'm going to do, so we can better understand it, I'm going to say row, and I'm going to say nested so row nested array dot index of items, right? Nested array dot index of items, and I'm now going to say here added, right? And let us see if that works. Hopefully it does. Loops.js. Yeah, it worked. So so let me just clear that out. So I like to help us have a better understanding. So this, and then let's leave this here. So if we say node loops.js, so you see row 0 is equals to, so remember 0 1 2, so row 0 is equals to 15, row 1 is equals to 15. So if you add these 2 plus 7 plus 6 equals to 15, 9 plus 5 plus 1, 4 plus 3. So basically that's what we did there. Okay, and all that. So it's possible to have nested loops. Even inside of these, you can have more nested loops. Inside of it, you can have another 4 something and all that inside there. So no problem. But you don't, what you want to do, you don't want to end in, you don't want to get in a nested loop hell or whatever. You don't want to end in an unending loop. You don't want to keep doing 4 days for that and keep looping inwards. That's just smart. But as we go on, we'll understand how to get through all of these other things. Okay, so that's that. The next one we're going to look through here is how to break through a loop. Okay, forcibly breaking through a loop. So guys, when working with loops here, one thing that you want to try and avoid is infinite loops. Okay, infinite loops is when you have a condition that would never be met. You want to have a condition that would always be met so that the loop can break, so that the code can stop running at some point. When you have an infinite loop, the code keeps running over and over again, and eventually you may crash your system, you may crash your browser. Okay, so you want to avoid infinite loops. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to quickly show you guys what an infinite loop looks like so that you can avoid it. It's bad practice. You should not do it. Okay, so let's look at it. Okay, let's take a scenario where we say for let I equal to 20, right? Now say I is less than, I is greater than, is less than 0, right? I plus plus. Then we say console.log I. So the problem with this code is that the condition will always be true. It will always be true. So currently I is 20, and we say if I is less than 0, you know, sorry, it's supposed to be greater than 0, right? If I is greater than 0. Now you see the thing here is this, I would always be greater than 0 because 20 is greater than 0. So what would happen is if we run this code, you will see what would happen. Let's loops.js, right? You see, it'll keep running infinitely. It'll get to the point. You don't want to do this because this can crash your browser or whatever you're working with. You don't want to do this. It'll keep running every single time because this condition would never be met. Okay, so you always want to avoid infinite loops. Don't do this. Always check your conditions and your declarations to be sure that they're met. Okay, so always avoid everything you can. This is bad. Okay, this is very bad. Don't do it. Don't do it. No, bad. Don't do it. Okay, very bad for practice. Don't do it. Okay, avoid it at all costs because you could crash something in your this thing. Okay, now the one last thing we're going to look at is looping through objects. Remember how we talked about objects peripherally in our last tutorial, and we say objects are key value pairs. So let's say for instance we have a collection of students and their scores. Let's say const students, right, is equals to this, and we say Paul. So we say Paul let's say Paul. So we say student is equals to Paul. Let's say Paul, and we say he scored 12, and we say Stephen. Thought that this would work though. Let's see, he scored 14, and then we said James, you know, he scored 20. All right, for now let's do something. Let's just log this to the console and see .log students, you know, students .paul. Let's see if that works. Okay, node loops.js. okay, oh, block letter, student Paul, node loops.js. So 12, so that works. Okay, so now student, so we're going to say for let student of objects dot keys, and then we pass that student's object to it so that it knows where to draw the keys from. And then we say let scores equal to students, right, of student, right? And then we're going to console.log the scores, right? Then say node loops.js, we see 12, 4, and 20. See that? 12, 4, and 20. All right. Now we can, aside from this, we can also use the for in for object, right? We can say for, let's say, let key in, let the key in students, right? Let's first declare the scores and say let scores equal to 0, or let's say average scores. So what we want to do is we want to add all of the score. We want to get the average of all of them. Average scores equal to 0. And then we'll say for let key in student, average score is equals to, is plus equal to students dot key, no, student key. And then we'll say console.log average scores. We can put this here, we can call it outside. The other one, we could just say okay, node loops.js. See, gives us 46. Yeah, gives us 46 on each loop. So the total we've got here is 46 for each one. All right, so average score of all the students is 46. All right, so yes. So guys, we have just gone through loops, and we can see that all the things that loops are good for. They help us iterate through arrays and repeat codes over a collection of items. And we've looked at the different kinds of loops: for loops, for in, for off, while loops, and that. Okay, so basically the purpose is that you do not want to rewrite the same codes and have code repeating themselves all over your code base. It becomes very redundant. You want to apply the dry principle, make your code base dry. Okay, so I really hope that you guys have learned one or two things. If you have any questions, you get confused, just leave me a comment, and I'm very happy to answer your questions. Again, before I leave you guys, I always say, don't beat yourself up too much if you're not getting it on first try. The best of programmers always Google these things, all the time. Don't be afraid to make references to your videos, to your tutorial, to your practice. Don't be afraid to make references to your code or Google stuff. Learn, research, ask questions. That's how you grow in this industry. Okay, and until I see you guys in the next video, take care. Bye.